The Berlin Wall. After the suicide of Adolf Hitler in April 1945 and the unconditional surrender of the Nazis in May 1945, World War II in Europe was over. This is when the Allies held the Yalta and Potsdam conferences to discuss the splitting and dividing of the German territories. Eventually, it was determined that the eastern part of Germany would go to the Soviet Union, while the western part would go to the United States, Britain, and France. The German capital, Berlin, was in the eastern half of Germany, which was controlled by the Soviet Union. Berlin itself was also divided amongst the four powers, with the east again going to the Soviets and the rest split amongst the western powers. This occupation of Berlin went into effect a month after the Nazi German surrender in June of 1945. The Soviets were not enthused with having the Western Allies within Berlin, let alone deep within their East Germany. Because of this, the Soviets tried to drive the West out of Berlin in 1948 by putting a block on the city. However, the Berlin airlift was used to deliver over 2 million tons of food and other supplies to West Berlin. The following decade plus was fairly non-aggressive, but many people were fleeing the communist East Berlin. By 1961, over 3 million people had fled east for west, and by August 1961, thousands of people were fleeing daily. The Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev knew he had to do something. On the night of the 12th of August 1961, when over 2,000 refugees fled East Berlin that day alone, Nikita Khrushchev got permission from the East German government to build a wall. The East German military and civilian forces got to work on a concrete and barbed wire wall. This was known as the Berlin Wall, which officially divided the city in two. Before it was built, one could relatively easily go from east to west, but now there was only 3 ways to get through: Checkpoint Alpha in Hebstadt, Checkpoint Bravo in Dreilinden, and Checkpoint Charlie in the center of Berlin at Friedrichstrasse. Except for officials, diplomats, and rarely residents, no one was allowed to cross. Those who crossed legally were rigorously checked and screened, entering and leaving. Those who attempted to cross illegally were either shot on the spot, imprisoned, or faced another intense punishment. The Berlin Wall did in fact stop the mass exodus from East Berlin. U.S. President John Kennedy was not happy about the wall, but said, "A wall is a hell of a lot better than a war." JFK also gave one of his most memorable speeches in West Berlin 2 years after the wall went up, where he is remembered for a line at the end of his speech, "Ich bin ein Berliner," or "I am a Berliner." Over 100,000 people attended this speech, which was just outside the West Berlin City Hall. In total, nearly 200 people were killed trying to cross the wall illegally, whether at the hands of the border guards or otherwise. However, the wall was not perfect, and over 5,000 East Germans successfully crossed. That 5,000 included around 600 border guards as well. Eventually, as support for the wall was dwindling and the Cold War was beginning to die down, an East Berlin Communist Party spokesperson said on November 9, 1989, that the citizens of East Berlin were freely able to cross the borders of the country. That day and night, people from both West and East Berlin went to the site of the wall, and by midnight, over 2 million people were celebrating the wall coming down as people were using hammers, chisels, and other hand tools to break down the barricade. Eventually, the wall was removed with cranes and bulldozers, and Berlin was together for the first time since the end of World War II in 1945. Germany was officially reunited around a year after the fall of the wall, on the 3rd of October 1990, and in the following year, the Soviet Union officially collapsed. Thanks for watching.